Righty-ho, I sent a new brochure out yesterday. If anybody has not received it as yet, let me know. My daughter bollocked me the first time. She said, you made it sound so difficult that nobody would want to apply. And I was trying, what I didn't want is people just thinking, all right, I'll have a go and throwing the money in the pot. So I was trying to do it where I was saying to people, look, you really need to pre-qualify. And I think we have 10, 11 people now who've gone through the evaluation process and are now on to the next level. So they're on to double, quadruple size account. You move from a 10,000 account to a 40,000 account if you qualify. So last month I took 3 people who were pushing me to do it, even though their results were mixed. And I said, okay, it's your call, you pay the money, but you need to follow the rules. And the feedback I've got from all 3 of them is actually been very, very good for them, because for once in their lives, I think it was Jeff that was saying, he's actually conscious of the fact that I can see what everybody does. So I have a dashboard when I can see what trades they're taking, what they've opened them at, etc., etc. And because the rules are so strict with this, you've got to keep the drawdown below 4%. You only have a maximum open risk of 1.5%, etc., etc. It's actually proving to be a positive experience for people who perhaps have not got 6 months under the belt of consistent profit, because it's making them behave in a more professional manner. So if you haven't got a copy of it, let me know. The emails went out yesterday. It should have gone to everybody. And if you want to have a chat about it, then my diary, there's a link for my diary. Well, I'll put that in here now. And so if anybody wants to have a chat about it, let me know. But as I said, don't be put off by the fact I was a bit too strict perhaps the first time. As I say, I didn't want people who've been trading for 3 weeks to suddenly come in and think that they could trade on a pro account, because I am not going to allow my money to be put in the ring for somebody who's been doing it 3 weeks, because as we know, many people can start off on a lucky streak for a few months. We need to see some consistency. But anyway, have a read, and if you're interested, I know a lot of you have been trading for a long time and that you are decent traders, but perhaps with a lack of discipline, you've not been sticking to your own rules as such, and you have a tendency to take trades that don't fit your rules. So if that applies to you, then let me know. Righty-ho, on Sunday, I spoke again about the fact that we'd had 7 weeks in a row of winning trades. And I mean, at some point, this is going to end. And what I was saying to you last week is do not get overconfident. And I explained when I started learning to trade back in 2002, I think it was 2003, on a real account, I made $2,000 in a week, and I was on a high all weekend. I had struggled at that point for 18 months. I was on the verge of quitting a number of occasions, but plodded on and kept going because I'm a stubborn sod. And I won $2,000. And then all weekend I was on a high, and alcohol, and telling everybody and anybody. And by the following Wednesday, I had given 1,500 of it back. Because the thing about this is that it is a journey, and there are things in the way ahead of you that you are not even aware that are coming. And one of which is the psychology, because when you start to trade other people's money, there are 2 ways that people go. You either get people who are kind of the Porsche driving, champagne drinking yuppie image of the 90s, who doesn't give a shit, and will either make you a fortune or lose the lot. Or you get the sensible one, which is what we're looking for, or you get people who get mega scared and very timid and only trade very small lots, etc. But I would rather you be timid and scared and trade small lots and build your confidence, rather than being an idiot and just, well, let's have a go for it, because that kind of mentality will not last 2 minutes in this game. So the whole point about all of this is slow and steady wins the race. You need to be consistent week in, week out. You need to not be overconfident, and basically you start every week afresh with a fresh slate, and you go through the same process as ever. So if you are new, if you go into my blog, if you go into here and go into my blog, you can see all my previous blog posts going back 2010, I think, 2008. I think we had a bit of a clear out for the earlier years, but recent blog posts, and the blog posts in July and August were a course in themselves, really, because I showed you, let's have a look here. Another way you can see my recent posts, you go to Start Here page, and if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you can see recent posts from Pierre and myself. And the ones in my blog, there was actually the whole process that I flagged at the beginning of July, that there were some big trades lining up. And where did we start? Well, this is still cranky. There's a lot of blog posts here. Here we go. So, not got a date on here, but it's telling you that the breakout's coming. Then the next blog post, I told you that, well, this was the plan, and 90% of the work that you should be doing as a trader is the planning. So my busy time is the weekend, and then during the week, I do as little as possible. I do not spend a great deal of time sat in front of the screens during the week. 90% of my time is spent planning. So this was the plan that I shared with you. I think actually it went even back. This was the live session where we'd been talking about it. And here I was talking about some tasty setups, etc. So if you go to the beginning of July, and then you can see there were big moves brewing, but in July, etc. So I just basically went through the whole process and showed you step by step that I could see them coming. Then in the live session, I showed you that they were beginning to look very tasty. And then we looked and said, okay, now that they've broken, what to do? Then some of you started to panic, because I was getting emails from people who were hundreds of pips in profit, never made so many pips in their lives before, and then they were panicking. And this is one of the issues that you get when you start to be successful, is the emotion. And the emotion, in my experience, is what kills 95% of traders. You have to learn to be dispassionate, and it is a lot easier said than done, but that is why I trade from weekly timeframes, and I do the analysis on the weekend. When the markets are shut, there is no adrenaline involved. You make a calm, cool decision. The target then for you is to stick to it, and that's the hard bit, which is what I was saying about those guys who are now doing the funded. So what to do after the big moves, and then trade management, adding to positions and lots more, etc. So the whole process there from the beginning of July through to early August was how to manage your trades. And here we've got one of the guys who was up 500 pips and really flipping out, and how to manage them then around the news. I told you in advance to be careful with the Aussie, because there was news coming up, take your profit, move your stop. And then we did a bit of a summary about the best month of the year. So that, if you are new, if you go through all of those, you will see the process from the pre-planning, then to the actual plan of what to take and where, and how to decide which ones, how much to risk, where to place stops, targets, entries, and then how to manage them, and then how to take profits and or add to them as well. So this week, well, last week I gave you 3 pairs that I was focusing on, and I showed in the blog post, and I made you a video on Friday showing that 2 of them won and 1 of them lost. But in the net result for the week, I think it was about 150 pips gain. So it was a decent week at a very slow time of the year. This year, I've got even fewer. I have the pound CAD, which Ashley's asked me to have a look at. It won the week before. And I have this is the big area that I'm looking at. And then also I was talking about the euro yen. And that was, for those of you with more experience, you can then go down to the M3, the 30-minute charts, to start looking for entries. So that's the analysis for the week. Most of the pairs are too far away from anywhere safe to place a stop, and therefore most of them I need a big pullback and a big move back. But what we'll do now is I will go through and show you what I have taken this week and why, and I will also then go through Pierre's Earth and Sky system for those who like to trade off a 4-hour chart. And with Pierre's system, it is a lot more systematic, step by step. Do this, do that, do that. If you are new, what you need to do is you need to go to the Start Here section first, and you must do the foundation bit. Create the business plan, and also create your trading rules. And that is how I went from losing in 2002, 3 and 4 to trading for a fund by late 2005, 2006. And in 2006, I was trading $1 million. 2004, I was about to quit. So this made the difference. You have to treat it like a business. Righty-ho, so back to the plan. As I explained this week, scheduled news, there is not a right lot. And Trump had gone golfing for the weekend and wasn't very active on Twitter either. So we need news generally as a catalyst. And at this time of year, when so many traders are away on holiday, then when you have a week when there's not great deal of news, I wasn't expecting too much movement. As ever, you need to pay attention. So if you were trading the Aussie, then you needed to be careful with that this morning because there was a monetary policy meeting minutes. The other big news of the week was Friday, and I don't trade Fridays anyway and recommend that you don't either. Righty-ho, so let's have a look at some charts. Now, what I have come to learn of late, I was explaining the other week, and I got a message from, I think it was Jane, about Bitcoin. I was explaining, I have been buying Bitcoin since the start of the year. I am actually just about to start another website. It's about investing in crypto. It's not about trading it at the moment because I just find the whole thing too freaky wild. But from an investing point of view, what I've come to realize is that the analysis that we do here at Mentor Pro works on all markets. This was gold back in March. As the COVID crisis was hitting, I was explaining why gold is seen as the ultimate safe haven and why buying physical gold was a better option than trading gold, because again, the nasty spikes will take you out on gold. And gold last week, a couple of weeks ago, finally broke through $2,000 an ounce, hit 2,077. Predictably, there was a pullback, and now it is trying to break $2,000 an ounce again. Now, for me, with gold, if you didn't buy down here, you need a pullback. And what tends to happen is people who bought lower down start to get twitchy up here, and then we'll sell. And then as price drops, we look for a pullback. So we can do that. This is the crypto. And I was showing people weeks ago where 110 was the huge psychological level on crypto, on Bitcoin particularly. And in here we had, it's very tiny, is this? Let's make this bigger. So on Bitcoin, you had a triangle setup, and the triangle setup meant that that middle figure, the 388 squillion, should be reflected in the breakout. And we got, nearly got the 388 squillion already. It is now breaking again up above 112. 112 is obviously a key psychological level and a whole number again. And this thing, I was looking for a pullback to 110 for those of you who missed it initially, then 111, now 112 is the big event. Can it stay above 112? So let's go back to Forex now. This week, I was talking about the euro yen, and I explained 4 weeks ago, pardon me, I explained that when the euro yen broke this 2-year-old trend line and it broke the weekly 200 EMA, that this looked the best opportunity on yen. And I know a lot of you caught this one. If you're still in it, you're up 270 pips. If you've got taken out of it, then for me, we need a pullback. And the big picture is it has broken a major area of previous support and resistance. So then going down to the daily, I need the EMAs. I need confluence for where to take the trade. So here you've got the monthly 55 EMA, and you have the weekly 200 EMA intersecting with the trend line. We are clearly in an uptrend on the daily, and therefore we're looking for a pullback into this area with a view to a continuation move up, because that break was so significant. And there's a lot of fresh air up here, and in 2018 this was up at 137, which is 1200 pips away. So that was the reasoning for that. And here what I've done is tried to scale into this. So the idea is that you place part of the order here and the other half of the order lower down. And this is so if it comes down and only bounces off the 55 EMA, we catch at least some of it. So if you're new, it's a bit more advanced. It is known as scaling in. Now this one, this is the pound CAD. I think this is what Ashley was asking about. Yeah, I wanted to take this, and the week before we were looking for a pullback down here, and I think actually I did take this last week. It was in the video on Friday. I think this may have been one of the trades. Yes, it was. Then I was also looking for a pullback again, and unfortunately yesterday it's not come quite as far, and this is another example of scaling in. I placed one part of the trade here and the other part down here with the stop in the same place. So that is the sweet spot for me on here. You have the added benefit of 50% fib and the trend line and the bunch of EMAs, and it is in an uptrend. You're looking on the first one, that's a 60 odd pip stop. The second one is only a 30 odd pip stop, but the potential gain for this is 300. So potential 1 to 10 risk reward. So if you were going to a horse race meeting and you got odds of 10 to 1 on the favourite, that would be very good odds, wouldn't it? Now, as ever, there is no guarantee. It might still fail. And we saw that on the New Zealand CAD the other week. New Zealand CAD, this was the sweet spot 2 weeks ago. This was a very good trade that we pre-planned again. And again, it was an intersection, the 200 and the 55 EMA and a trend line. I think it was also a fib line as well. But this was an area where we'd look to take the trade. It went 80, 90 pips, pulled back. So that was the winner. The following week, last week, it lost. It came back down again. It broke through, and it is now sat on the daily 200 and weekly 55. And I got somebody in the forum was asking me about shorting this from where it is now. I wouldn't short it just yet, guys, because it's stuck like glue to this area. I would be far more interested. If it got back up here, then I would be interested, because then I could place the stop 20, 30 pips away, go above the whole number in the EMAs, 20 pips risk for a potential 100 pip gain, 1 to 5 risk reward ratio. The issue here is you need this to clearly make a new low and the candle to close lower down, then pull back. Then you've not got multiple reasons, but I could understand the thinking of taking a 30 pip risk for a potential 3, 4, 5, 600 pip risk down here. Okay. Any questions so far? Well, I just get a sip of my tea before it goes cold. Oh, Ashley says, I forgot to mention, I also see, Ashley sees a triangle on the pound CAD. Yep. Let's put a clean chart up, Ashley, so we can see what we're doing. Pound CAD. Just candlesticks. Where have you gone? There we go. Okay, what Ashley is seeing is a triangle break lining up on the pound CAD. So here is the triangle. The theory goes, if you knew, you're going to think this is nonsense, but I will show you a few examples in a minute that just might open your mind. The theory goes, you measure the size of the triangle, which is 915 pips, and the theory goes that when this breaks out of this triangle, either in an upwards or a downwards direction, clearly breaks and closes out, the theory goes this will go 900 and odd pips up or down. So for the mumbo jumbo ones amongst you think it's all nonsense, this is a recent trade we took on the CAD, and this is a USD CAD. This is a triangle break that I showed you back in April and explained that this is a 1,000 pip triangle. That middle number there, 1,000 pip triangle, suggests this is going to be a 1,000 pip move. Well, it's done 850 so far, so it's not doing so bad, is it, guys? Then we also have triangles, which I'm just trying to think, I was looking this morning. There was some other, that's the pound CAD we just looked at. We'll come to them, we'll come to them. Righty-ho, so the pound at the moment, what is obvious at the moment when you look at the markets on the morning is what your first thing that you're looking for is, have we got dollar strength or dollar weakness? And clearly at the minute we have dollar weakness because the pound is trying once again for the 4th week running to break the 200 EMA and the whole number and the trend line here at the top. So here is massive resistance, and until or unless this breaks and closes above, and my bias is still to short, and I wouldn't buy it here because it's too near this lot and it's too far away from the support. This is another triangle, however, which is a 1,500 pip potential break. So if you're in it and you have the cojones to stay in it, This could be on the way to 140. But for now, I wouldn't take it here. If you're taking it down here and left some in, fine. But here, I wouldn't take it. Euro USD, similar scenario. It's drifting to the 200 EMA. They're like a magnet to these things. And this is why I nowadays just focus on these two EMAs, the 200 and the 55 exponential moving average. So it's drifting up there. The problem again is, where am I going to place my stop? So for me, the sweet spot for this is all the way back down at 11500, which is where we looked initially to buy this. And this has gone 370 pips. And again, this was pre-planned and shared with you in advance. But here is the sweet spot. And if you trade in longer time frames, you need bags of patience and discipline and wait for it to come back. Swissy. Now, the Swissy is drifting ever lower. Same scenario. Each week, it's making a slightly new low, finishing. But the problem is it's miles away for a stop for a long-term order. So we need to look at the shorter time frames. Now, Mark is with us this morning, and against my better judgment, and I did tell him not to do it, and then I showed somebody how to do it. This is swing trading. This is shorting the Australian dollar, even though, and it's just, for me now, it's a bad idea all around now. When Mark first looked at this at the weekend, I understood what he was talking about, but I said to him then it wasn't for me. The idea behind swing trading is basically you are trying to pick the tops and the bottoms, and to me it's just too risky. But the advantage is, if you can get a situation where there is a lot of major resistance above, then you can think about it. The positive side of this would be if it dropped, it could be a 400 or 500 pip move. So that does make this tempting. The downside is that you don't have multiple reasons for where to place the stop. You are just relying on this 200 EMA to hold for a fourth week running, which it may well do. But as we've seen, it is generally today that the dollar is weak and the euro is pushing up. The pound is trying to break this major area that it's failed to break for the last 2 weeks. So the probability is more in favor now, I think, of the Aussie dollar going up than going down. One of the other things yesterday that was tempting, Mark, was the fact that you've got the Bollinger Bands closing. And when they close like a pair of tweezers, it is a sign of price going to dry up and drift sideways. We said that in a minute, it's flip a coin whether it's going to go up or down. Kiwi, New Zealand dollar, and another one I've said to you before, this is just in a triangle here. I mean, there's a big triangle here. For this, for me to take this as a triangle break, I want it to drop. So if this can drop and get below the 55 EMA, then this potential triangle here is 1300 pips. And there's a load of free space down here. So that would be really nice. To go up, the issue is it's got to break the 200 EMA, which it failed at last time. It's then got to break the 55 on a monthly. So I would need it to break and close above there before I would take it. I wouldn't take it into the face of what's going on now. USD CAD, showing you this a little earlier. Typical. The builders next door, they wait for me to sit down before they turn the Kango on. Just let me shut the window, guys. Benefits and the downfalls of working from home. Right, so the CAD is now coming to an interesting area. If you've stayed in all the time, there is a strong possibility that it is going to bounce at this weekly 200 EMA. And I am even willing to consider the idea of a long back up here on a shorter time frame. This is more interesting. This is 130. 130 on a weekly has been a huge previous major support and resistance. And it is also the monthly 55 EMA. So you can see here on numerous occasions it came down, and this is weeks, guys. This is 5-6 weeks. Tried to break, bounce back up. Tried to break, bounce back up. Pierced through, bounce back up. You get the picture. Here, when it was resistance, it kept coming up and hitting it. Then it got really messy. Here, it was support. And as you know, support when it breaks becomes resistance and vice versa. So if this gets down to 130, that would be the 1,000 pip move that the triangle break predicts. And it would then be a huge area of previous support and resistance, whole number decimal 10, psychological level. I will long this. Okay. CAD yen. Now, this one, I've shown you the CAD yen. The CAD yen for 6 weeks went sideways, bouncing off 78.50. And as it was, had you taken this, you would have had 7, 8 winning weeks and 1 loss from the spike. What I was showing you at the weekend was a pullback to here will be the stronger area, but 80 is huge. So the 55 EMA broke yesterday and it sat above it. Sorry, last week. But that in itself would not be enough for me to take this trade. The reason why I've taken this trade this morning is from the 30-minute trend line break. And let's go have a look at that now. What was it? The euro yen. Oops, that's Pierre's Earth and Sky. Here we go. CAD yen. So the CAD yen, now just excuse me a second whilst I put the pivots in. That is the weekly pivot at 80, which is in exactly the same place on a weekly that I am thinking to long this pair, because we have the weekly 55 EMA there and it has broken 80, which is major previous support and resistance. That was a nasty spike, but in general, this has been an important area. It has made the move up, it has broken it. But as explained, not enough reasons to take it from a longer time frame. But when you throw in the mix, you've got the weekly pivot there, and it's now broken Pierre's 30-minute trend line. So this is the M3 system. That then is a buy for me. And I had taken it at 80.17 this morning. It's currently plus 5 or 6. It has been 12. The advantage again is if this goes on a run, then there is, I don't think there's a monthly pivot up there. Let me just double check where the monthly is. Monthly pivot, no, monthly pivot is the one that we're sat on now. So if you're completely new, guys, focus on my M2, get used to the big picture, look for the sweet spots on the chart where price is probably going to react. And what you are trading when you're trading Forex is probability. There is no guaranteed outcome. If you get the risk reward right, i.e. you are looking for trades that will make you at least twice the amount you risk, then you can be successful 40% of the time and still be in profit. So the key to all of this is probability. Where is it most likely probable that this thing is going to react? And then can I make at least twice what I risk? And I have explained before, if this gets up here, although I don't normally swing trade, this is a huge area of previous resistance going back to December 2017. And on a number of occasions, it's come up and hit it, it's bounced off it. And there was the sweet spot because you had the 200 EMA intersecting the trend line at the same time. And here we have the same scenario. And remember, the moving averages are moving support and resistance. So here you can be aggressive and go just above the 200 EMA and the support line and the whole number, or you can be more conservative and go above the 55 EMA. So you've got more reasons where if it comes up, it will probably bounce off. So you're risking 50 for a potential 250, 300 down to where it is now. So that's what you're looking for. Attila says he's looking on the euro pound. We'll look in a second. This is the pound Kiwi, and somebody was asking me last week about shorting this here because this is parity plus. This is 2. So British pound now is worth 2 New Zealand dollars, which is a huge area of psychological level that everybody's aware of. Wow, the pound's now worth 2. So to short here was not a good idea for me because I didn't have anywhere to place the stop. So what I explained last week is if it came back down here, I would buy it. Here, I didn't want to sell it. And as it is, it's turned out to be a good decision because this has now gone 120 pips past. What you would wait for with this, you would wait for the EMAs to move up, you would wait for it to make a move up here, then pull back into that area, then that becomes huge support. At the moment, there's nowhere to place a stop for the buy or the sell. And again, if you're new, you'll gather, I go on about the stops a lot. To me, the stops are the most important thing when it comes to trading. I can teach anybody to find good entries. And I would teach anybody to be able to find good entries within a few months. But it's the stops that will define your success or failure. Right, this is the euro pound. Ashley says a triangle. Yeah, so this is what Ashley spotted. This is a weekly triangle on the euro pound, so well spotted, and that is an 800 pip triangle. So again, ideally, we would want it to break and close above because there's nothing in the way, and this could be on its way to parity. If, on the other hand, it drops, your issue is going to be, there's going to be probably struggle here, and I would definitely expect it to struggle down here. But I mean, it's still worth taking, but that would be the best one. But yeah, well spotted, Ash. Oh, sorry, it was Attila that spotted that one. Well done, Attila. Mark says, divergence starting on MACD. Which one are you looking at now? I'm guessing you're looking at, yes, the pound New Zealand. Mark's our swing trader. He likes to swing. I do not swing. What Mark has spotted to give him added confidence that this is going to turn back down again is you've got MACD divergence. And what that means is as you see the price of a Forex pair or a commodity going up, and making higher highs on MACD on the trigger, it is making lower highs. And it is a clue that this is going to turn back down. But you wouldn't take a trade just on that. You need multiple reasons. Sorry, Mark, if I picked on you today. You're an Aussie, you can take it. Now, this is the dollar yen. I don't like the dollar yen generally. It did pull back perfectly. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. Hello. Sí, soy Mark. ¿Cómo? Very sorry, guys. I'm waiting for a hospital appointment for my wife, and we waited days and days and days, and the sod's law, they chose to ring now, so I'm sorry about that. GP, right, that's where we were. So Aussie yen. So the Aussie yen 7,500 was the big area on this one. Again, the bigger EMAs are not in the way. But what I was saying this week, this became interesting because suddenly you've got the confluence. You've got 7,500 is the huge area on the weekly. You've then got the 55 EMA coming up behind it. And we also have a trend line intersecting in here as well. So basically, there's a lot going on here to give me a bit more confidence to want to long that one. Final one, pound Aussie. Somebody asked me yesterday about this one. At the minute, it can't make its mind up. I mean, clearly, for the last 10 days, it is stuck in a tiny range. And it can't decide whether it's going to go up and it's going to go down. And it's a bit unusual, this one, to be quiet because this thing is a wild ride generally and not recommended for newbies. But for me, if I was going to trade this at the minute, I would need it to clearly break and close below on a daily, below 181, then pull back, then I would be interested. Equally, for a long, the problem here is 250 pips away. So you need a break and close above, then a pull back into here. But the minute, it's clearly just, it's in a range, guys. So there's no point shorting or longing here unless you're going to trade the range. Righty-ho, let's have a look now at Pierre's Earth and Sky system. So, explained at the beginning, if you're new and you want to learn how to trade, the best thing to do is go through my M2 section, and I basically start off with candlesticks and trend lines and EMAs, and that's it. I am looking at the big picture. I am looking at the area where price is probably going to react, and then I am calculating whether I can make at least twice what I risk. So start with the big picture, understand what's going on. For example, here with the Canadian dollar, here we were going sideways, so you're trading a range. Here it was clearly going up, so you were only looking to buy. So here, each time it pulled back into your trend line, you look for multiple reasons, you just want to buy. Here, you're trading the range. Here, you only buy. Here, you only want to sell. Now, when you've done that, then you could go on to Pierre's Earth and Sky system, which is similar thinking to mine, except Pierre works off a 4-hour chart. And then the final part of the puzzle, if you do all of those, is then you can learn how to use the M3, which is the smaller time frames. But you can't do the smaller time frames until you understand the big picture. James, depends where you are. James is asking which broker do you suggest. So, and also if you want, James, if you think you're ready to go live, then send me a screenshot or what you've been doing with my FX book, and I'll have a look and tell you if I think it's a good idea or not, if you want that advice. So Thailand, probably Australia. Global Prime are as good as anybody. Not one of the other bigger, I'm not going to say the name for legal reasons, but there's one of the big Aussie ones who claim to be a direct process broker. They're not, and they make tens of millions a month betting against their own people. So be careful who you choose. All right, well, there we go. So this is Global Prime. CAD Yen, I showed you a little earlier that on the longer time frames, this was an interesting area, but I don't have multiple reasons for the stop. Although what I have done is I've mixed and matched here. So I have placed the order just above 80, which is that 55 EMA. I have placed the stop below the 200 EMA down here at 79.50. So I'm risking 58 pips for a potential gain of 3 to 4 times the risk. So here, whereas I wouldn't take it on its own there, because on Pierre's strategy, it's sat on a weekly pivot point, so that's huge. It's sat on the whole number. For 10 hours, it clearly has struggled here. Now we're getting the cross. We've broken the 30-minute trend line. I mean, I have jumped in a little bit early on this, in that if you're strictly following Pierre's rules, you have to wait for an arrow signal. But to me, that's a significant break at an interesting area. And I think that the probability is in my favor, and therefore I've taken that trade. Now, Pierre has posted this morning, South Africa is supposed to be coming out of lockdown, but he tells me that the situation on the ground is not healthy at all. So Pierre's still working on the family farm, very little internet, gets into town once a week to do this for us, thank you very much. And as I said last week, it's almost impossible to be a Forex trader and an online worker if you've no internet. This is the Euro USD. This is Pierre's strategy. We need to move the fibs and follow them up. So as the price makes new highs, you may move them up. You then need to move the zone that we're looking at. Pierre has clear rules to follow with his strategy. So basically, you need all the indicators on the 4-hour to be green if you're going up and red for down, and it has to have done at least 52 pips worth of movement last week, and the Euro USD just did that. So the zone for the pullback is 181. And here what Pierre does, he looks for it to come into the area, to slow down, to go sideways, and then to give a signal to long, just like I've shown you with this, CAD Yen. So he would be looking for it to slow down on the 4-hour, 1 hour, 30-minute, then take the trade on the trend line break. So hopefully it's all coming together for you. So this is the zone for the euro, and I particularly like it when the weekly pivot's in the middle of it, and it's the whole number as well, 11800, and you can see some pretty solid support resistance in there with the 55. So Pierre is looking for a pullback here to long. Euro yen, similar scenario. We're nearly there now. So this is coming into the zone. I don't like the idea that the weekly pivot's here, because I don't want to get in here and then start bouncing off the weekly pivot. So I would prefer the euro over the over the euro yen. This is the Euro New Zealand. You get the picture. The euro moved a lot last week. The pound did not. So we don't have many pound pairs this week. 11800. No, sorry, 180. So 180, 179.75. Huge area. Previous support and resistance. Also happens to be Pierre's Earth and Sky zone and the weekly pivot. You're looking for a pullback to long there. Pound yen is one of the few pounds that moved last week, and it did go 140 pips. And again, I would not take it into the face of that weekly pivot. Aussie yen, and again, don't take more than 1 yen at a time, or if you do, half the risk. Again, for it to get in here and then bounce off there, I wouldn't like it. Maybe just be looking at the weekly pivot. But again, I've just shown you better options elsewhere. CAD, we looked at the big picture on the CAD. I showed you it has been drifting down and down and down and down for months. We only want to sell. The issue on the longer time frame is it is miles away from any previous support or resistance. the nearest is up at 13500. So on here, it's 13300. You've got the weekly pivot at 132.84, and you've got Pierre's zone here, and you have to keep moving the fib down as this thing is drifting lower and lower, and then you have to move your range down with it as well. So now the weekly pivot is inside Pierre's trading zone. Final one, I think, is the CAD yen. Did 139 pips last week. Everything is green. Weekly pivot is there. So again, it's all in the area. Pierre missed this one, probably because this one drove him and I nuts last year. But there was big Aussie news overnight, and on top of that, it has actually been in a fairly straightforward uptrend as the Aussie New Zealand. A very frustrating pair normally, but it has now, I need to readjust this again a little bit, it has made new highs. It has actually broken 110 at the moment, which is very significant. So you're looking for a pullback into here. Right, that is the first two. We've got time now. We'll have a look at the M3. And it will just take a moment for the charts to load because there's that much stuff on here that it tends to freeze a little bit. Anybody got any questions for me while my platform reloads? John says he's going to email me later about the brochure. So if you weren't here at the beginning, guys, I was talking about the brochure. You should have received a new copy yesterday, and I've toned it down a little bit. Instead of frightening you to death that you can't do this, is if you think you're ready for it, then we'll have a quick chat and see if I think it's a good idea for you to do it. And I was explaining that some of the guys who are not as experienced have actually found that this has been a good thing for them because it's making them stick to rules. And the problem that most of you have is the emotion and the failure to stick to rules. Well, I also have a dashboard that I can see what everybody is doing all on one screen now. So Big Brother is watching you. 3 new messages, what we got now? Ashley, you didn't receive it. Okay, I'll make sure I'll send it to you. On Euro Yen, Attila says, on Euro Yen, the weekly pivot line is at 125.75, but you have a pending order under the weekly pivot. Let's have a look. I am looking at the bigger picture really for this, but let's have a look where the weekly pivot is on here. Yeah, good point. I'm kind of looking at it from a longer time frame, Tiller. I mean, it is a problem if you start swapping between different time frames. I mean, the more conservative way to do it would be to wait for it to break and close above. As you know, I prefer to trade from longer time frames. So I did this in July because there was nothing happening on the bigger time frames, but it is different rules. So yes, quite a valid point there. So with the Euro Yen, let's have a look. What have I got the order at? I've got the order at 124.67. So in retrospect, that's not such a brilliant idea. So I need to move it up a little bit. So well spotted, that man. Well done, Attila, you're quite right. Jean, I don't see your calendar link in the chat box. Okay, let's have a look. Can you see it now, Jean? Should be able to see in the chat box. If anyone wants to book me for a chat, see about doing the funded account, or anybody's interested in some private coaching or both, you can book me for a session there. If none of those times work for you, then suggest a couple of different ones. Main thing is I don't like to work after 6 p.m, 7 p.m. at the latest London time, because I get up early, and by the time that comes, I'm past it. I'm of no use to you nor me. Can anybody else see my link in the chat box for my diary? It says, Mark, trading help, you can book me. Anybody see it? It's supposed to be good. Oh, right. Why that is? Zoom has changed something else. It's supposed to be. Oh, hang on. My fault. My fault. Blaming Zoom. I was only going to panelists. Right now, can you see it? And also, right, there you go. And also, for those of you who didn't get a brochure, let me give you the link for the brochure. Actually, if you get it from here, and then I won't forget. You know what I'm like. There you go. So if anybody hasn't received a copy of the brochure yet, you can get that from that link there, and you can read all about it in there. Okay. So we should now, we've got the M3. So M3, completely different rules, completely different mindset. The only advantage is with that we use the pivot points, and the pivot points when things are not happening on the bigger time frame can be useful. I generally ignore pivot points on the longer time frames. If you put the fibs on the EMAs and the pivots, you'll never take a trade. So it is a different way of thinking. You also have to not be too greedy with this, because the probability intraday, you get what has been labeled as a harmonic wave pattern. So price will meander around generally, and each pair is different, and it depends on the time of year. But the general thing is, the New Zealand dollar at the moment, you would be thinking about a short, and 6,500 is huge on this pair for previous support and resistance, and it also has the daily 55 here. So you need to be getting a signal, or you need to be taking it near the pivot, thinking that it could go 50, 60 pips. You don't want to get a signal here and take it, because then your potential is 25 pips and you're going to have to risk 30 pips. That's a crap idea. Here would be the interesting area. Here, you wouldn't long it into the face of that. But if you're not sure about all this, go through the M3 section in the education area. But as I say, look at the big picture first. Now, the Euro Aussie is one, for me at the minute, is ignore. It is just meandering along sideways. Euro USD is clearer. Friday, typically, which we don't work, it gave a really nice signal, and we caught that, it's up 100 pips. I need a pullback, and on the bigger time frame I showed you, we need a pullback all the way back down here. If we get a pullback to 118 this week on the M3, I would look to take that. Swissy, I showed you, is miles away from major support resistance for a stop on the daily, but intraday here at 9100 is clearly the area. So you look for a pullback and a short. Pound, the issue with this yesterday, it did give a signal. It was too late in the date for me, but it did give a signal, but the 200 EMA was just above, which it did stop at. It's now kept going. I don't like it when you're in a tight range like this, so I would look for a better opportunity. AUD, now it's broken the 200, but as we know, and this is why you need to understand the big picture, guys, 7,200 is a huge area of previous support resistance, and there is a weekly trend line, something coming in here as well. And there is, I think there's a pivot, there's something going on here as well. So for me, I wouldn't take this. The possibility is not great. Aussie yen, clearly this is the area, but again, don't be greedy because it's only moving 30 odd pips, so probably best left that alone. CAD, sod's law, the CAD yesterday was a better signal. You have this 3100, the weekly 200 I showed you on the longer time frame. You ideally, if it comes back up again, you want to be looking around here, 132.80. Dollar yen, don't like it, but sod's law, it worked perfectly. But you're below the EMA, so you're looking for a pullback into there for a drop. Euro yen can't make its mind up. The bias was we were looking for a long, but as Attila quite rightly says, at the minute it can't break the pivot. So then you want it to break a pivot, then you want it to break a trend line and give a signal. CAD yen, so this is the one that I am in. At the minute it is pulling back. We shall see whether that is going to win or not. Euro pound, I mean, 90 is huge. You've got both pivots here as well. But I'm sick of this, guys. I mean, look at this last week. I mean, it went 23 pips in 2 days. It's just boring and it's just frustrating, and there's no energy because there's so many people missing. Pound Swissy, never trade it, but somebody asked me to look at it last week. It's broken the pivot, so you think about a long. New Zealand CAD, nah, don't like the look of that. Bitcoin, I've shown you earlier, a trend line break, and then the consolidation here. Look at this. So when Bitcoin went on a surge, then it settled at 1100. So that was clearly the area to long if you were going to buy it. Not trade it, but buy it. Pound New Zealand, that was the sweet spot, midnight last night, so missed the bloody thing. And sod's law, that's got 200 pips. And one of you did actually call that, but maybe that was Mark calling it short. And pound card, last but not least, stuck in a range, not interested. All right, any questions before I leave you to it? Okay, some new people with us today. George, Salvador, notice another new guy and a lady in as well. Covered a lot of ground today, guys. It's going to take you time, obviously. There's a lot of people in the room who've been doing this for many years and they know all the basics, etc. So don't get overwhelmed with all of this. I mean, you've had 15, 16, so 18 years of my Forex experience in an hour thrown at you. So it may resemble trying to drink from a fire hose, for which I am sorry, but we're trying to cater for everybody. But what you need to know is you go into the website and on the home page, you will see the latest blog post from Pierre and myself. I forgot to put a picture in. And here we explain in advance what we're looking to trade this week and why. And that is using our strategies. And then here, you go to the Start Here section, work your way through all the basics, go through the STT system. And that is a simple trend trading system and breakouts. And that is the backbone of both M2 and Earth and Sky. Learn this, learn that, and only then have a look at M3. And on top of that, you've got fundamentals, what is driving the price, what makes prices move, why is the dollar currently weaker than stronger, trading psychology I spoke about at the beginning, when people, emotion kills most people when it comes to trading. They either get too excited or too scared or too greedy, too fearful. Recordings of all the live training sessions and today's will be in my blog later today as well. Miscellaneous strategies, private coaching. If anybody's interested in some private coaching, let me know. And subject to whether I think I can help you and I've got time, then we can have a chat, which is also this here. And then this is to do with the brochure that we've just given you a link to. So here it explains a little bit more about trading our money and sharing in the profits, trade for clients, sharing the profits, etc., etc. Okay, yeah, George says yes. George in Athens. He sat there soaked. Yeah, and if English, I'm not sure. I mean, most Greek people I know have got very good English, but if English is not your first language, and my Northern English accent as well, George, you probably need a stiff yak, what do they call it now, raki or uzo, and go have a lie down. All right, thank you very much, one and all. I hope you got plenty out of it. If you're interested in the brochure, then let me know. If you're interested in private coaching, let me know. And if you want to be funded as well. Hi, Elijah. We'll see you later. Rightio, thank you, one and all. I will be here, God willing, at the same time, same place next week. You're welcome, Attila and Mark as well. And have a great week. Catch you later. Bye-bye.